This does not seem like a safe place to put my tea, does it? Let's put it somewhere else. Here we go. You can see I have made a sketch, and I based the sketch on a photo that I found. It's a really lovely, warm, sort of autumn picture of this woman with red hair and a really blue background, and I really liked the colors. So keeping that sort of feeling in mind of what the picture, the sort of sense of the picture, the essence of the picture, keeping in mind what that felt like, I'm going to paint this in quite loose sort of watercolors. This is my plan today. So I'm using quite a large brush and see if I can capture a little bit of that feel of the of the moment, the feel of that picture. You can see I'm using multiple palettes. I'm a little bit of a sucker for many palettes. So see if I can make the picture quite warm, give it kind of warm tones. Let's see. So I like to start with warmer tones around the areas where I know. What is that? A bit of fluff. I like to start with warmer tones around the areas where I know that the skin is naturally a bit warmer. But I think today, see if I can stick to those tones a little bit. So no greens or blues. I think my shadows are going to be purple. And I'm going to use quite a lot of reds and oranges today. This is the plan. Let's see how I'm going to get on. Sometimes I don't stick to my own plans, as you know. Sometimes I get distracted or a little bit caught up in the moment. I'm not much of a planner. And the whole sort of less is more concept is a little bit lost on me. I'm afraid I have to accept that I'm a little bit of a more is more person. So everyone's different, right? I like the idea of less is more and minimalistic art, but I like bright colors and vibrancy. You have to accept that if there are certain things you really like, that is probably what suits you, right? So, seems a bit scary, doesn't it? Orange eyes. They will be brown later on. Why is there so much dust on my paper? So, it has been a couple of weeks since my last video on here, which was a little bit sad because I was on such a good streak. I really posted a video every single week, but I had a family emergency for which I had to be away, and then when I came back there was lots of things to catch up on, lots of classes to catch up on, and it just took a little while to find my groove back into my own normal rhythm. And I know that there's a few more occasions that I'm going to be gone in the near future. Mostly fun things, but I need to think about what I'm going to do for my channel then. Maybe I can film a few videos ahead. That'd be great, and then schedule some posts. I wasn't quite prepared enough to do that last time. There's a bit of a mark here on my paper, but I'll just have to deal with that. So I have to think about what I'm going to do with that in the future, in the near future. Now I know that I'm going to be away, I have a bit more time to prepare, but I don't know how other people do it with social media posts and how they keep track of when they're away and when to post. So you can see, because I'm using my dried paint, there's some pieces of paint stuck to my brush here and there. So far I like the colors, although I wasn't really planning to start with the hair. So already I am not listening to my own advice. Starting with the face first. Quite quickly got up in all these oranges and red. And changed my plan a little bit, but I'm still sticking with the color scheme that I plan to do. So far so good. I really enjoy making portraits again lately, and I think because I am doing lots of children's book illustrations, I think I said so last time as well, because I'm doing lots of children's book illustrations, it is really nice to do something a bit more observing, something that is a little bit more well, not necessarily realistic, but where I have to use my imagination a little bit less. And I love using my imagination. I love creating different worlds and different characters based on stories. But it is really nice sometimes to just make your mind go blank and just create based on a little bit more realism. So, even though I'm not using any realistic colors, I'm still working on something where I don't have to think too much about background stories and things like that. So today, I know what is happening. These marks are the marks from what I painted on the other side. You can see it's quite dark. And this paper is not really watercolor paper, so it's pushing through a bit. I should have gessoed it, which is something that I'm a bit too lazy for. So she's going to have really dark freckles. I hope it doesn't look too moldy. Let's see how I get on. Sometimes you just have to work with things the way they are instead of trying to change them, right? A mindful exercise there of just accepting things for the way they are. So, I made my sketch with a red pencil today, so I knew that was the direction I wanted to go in with my painting. And I love sketching in red. I don't know if anyone else uses red to make sketches here. I just absolutely love it. I find the sort of warmth of the sketch really nice in combination with the paint. And a bit softer than a graphite pencil usually. Very wet picture. Really, this is quite a large brush, but I'm really trying to just use the tip of my brush for these lines. It's not quite dry brushing because my brush is wet and the paper underneath is wet, so I'm really trying to really lightly touch the paper. See if I can create some movement in the hair. So. This is a little bit like my own haircut at the moment. I cut my hair short a week ago, and it was very long. I think they cut off about 1 meter, and it feels very fresh to have some shorter hair. I'm very happy with it. The feel of having a fresh haircut. I don't know, I always struggled with haircuts. I usually have really clear ideas of what I want, but I'm not very good at explaining it. But this time it worked out quite well, and I think it is because I did not go too complicated. I just wanted it shorter, a little bit bob-like, but not like any undercuts or anything really complicated that the hairdresser that I went to, that it's happened in the past that I went for haircuts that were not quite in the style of the hairdresser I went to. And then they struggled actually executing it. They were excited about trying something a bit more adventurous, so to say, than what they usually did, but then they were not very good at it. So that's happened to me in the past, where I had maybe a little bit too much faith in the hairdresser. But this time, I tried to keep it simple, and the result I'm quite happy with. So, use some of this brown, warm brown color. I don't want the colors to be completely fantasyful. See if I can add in some browns in this picture. So I spent a lot of time this week updating my portfolio, which is something that I should do a little bit more often, but I usually am so busy with actually doing the work that I don't update my website very often. So sometimes the stuff that's on my website is a little bit outdated. So I'm going to some illustration events this month, and I want to send my portfolio out to a few places. Needed to be up to date, and it's been really fun to add some more recent pieces of art or just reviewing things. Like, is this still the type of work that I want to be doing? Sometimes these things change a little bit, don't they? So that's what I've been working on mostly. I spent a very limited amount of time on social media. I don't know if anyone knew this. I have an Instagram account. I do respond to people, and if people ask questions, I respond to them regularly. Sip of tea. But I find Instagram quite draining sometimes. So I spend limited time on there if I can. So I get my work mostly from sending out my portfolio to places myself. I like being in charge of, you know, sort of my own destiny, so to say. So I try to send out my portfolio to places where I would like to work with instead of waiting for them to come to me. It does mean you get a lot of rejections or a lot of no responses. But I do like the feeling of not necessarily being in charge, but taking a little bit of control in my own hands rather than waiting for people to find me. So I want to add some of these grasses around this woman. She's a bit like a goddess of harvest, surrounded by greens and grasses. So this was my plan. That was not my plan. It's okay. We can have a little bit of dark in there. So I should add some darker colors here now as well. This happens when you work with a messy palette like I do. Sometimes you have little mistakes like this where colors accidentally mix up together. Maybe it wasn't quite how it was intended. But I'm quite happy with it, apart from all these marks on her face, which clearly comes from the other side of the paper. I love grasses. Grasses are such beautiful plants, I think. So let's see, do I want to add any purples to her? I feel like her neck is a little bit too wide, wider than I intended it to be. So let's start adding some purples to the picture for a little bit of shadow. I want to keep it in this really warm tones. Remember, Irene, no dark, no cold colors, just warmer tones. So still a little bit wet. Let's soften this a little bit. It's a bit too intense, isn't it? So, remember, you can always go over an edge. And soften it a little bit if you need to. Shadows are such a good way of giving shape to things. So, with shadows you can make something that was flat into something that is round, and something that is flat into something with a sharp corner or a round edge. So, so I'm still seeing if I can keep that movement to the hair. See, my paper starts to buckle a little bit. It happens. I am being very stubborn to keep using this book for watercolors, even though it's clearly not quite suitable for it. Is it coming from this side? No. Perhaps I need to let this dry a little bit. So let's add some browns to the hair, and then I need to let everything dry for a moment before I carry on, because it's extremely wet. So I really love wet paintings though. I find there's something really fun and something really satisfying about not quite knowing what's going to happen. So, I hope you enjoy these sort of real-time videos that I'm creating. They're always a little bit scary to post because you can see every little mistake that I'm making and every little brush stroke that I'm making is visible. No hiding behind time lapses. It looks like a vampire now. Let's take some of that off. Yes, I need to let things dry a little bit before it gets too far. So let's put my big brush away. I can make the eyes a little bit darker whilst everything else is drying. Let me grab a small brush. Let me see. Maybe this one. See, it's significantly smaller than anything I've used so far. I'm just going to see if I can make the eye a little bit more detailed. It's fairly dry there, so it should be okay. So sigh. I've had such a busy day today. No complaints, of course. Sorry, my camera went off for a moment. It does that sometimes. Just saying that I had such a busy day today, and that I have no complaints, of course, because I much rather be busy than that I have nothing to do. But then taking some time to just paint, something that I like. I don't mean to sound like I'm cheating, but if I'm really unhappy with what I make, I can always decide not to share it, right? There's no control in that. It's all my own choice. So just spending a little bit of time just creating and chatting away is very enjoyable. I must say that I'm quite happy with this picture so far, which is scary. I think I've said that before, haven't I? It's scary because if you're happy with what you're making, the risk of messing it up is much higher then if you're not happy with what you've made so far, there's much more freedom to experiment at that stage. See, like this line I'm not happy with. Let's blend it out a little bit. What is the shape of the jawline? So. This side here is really wet. So keep adding slightly darker colors here and there. I need to decide what to do with the background. I wanted to add some of that blue in the background. So it's blue and purple, blue and orange are such nice complementary colors. But at the same time, I don't want to color the whole background, so maybe just some splashes. some. So I think I need to let this dry for a moment and then see where I am going to add some extra. I feel like I need a little bit more sort of intensity here and there. As you can see, there's big splashes of water here and there, so I need to let that dry and then I'll decide what to do. So goodbye for now, and I'll see you again shortly. I am back. I let everything dry. It was super wet, so it took quite a good half an hour, 45 minutes for things to dry. It's still a little bit damp, but all the wetness, sort of the puddles have disappeared. It's very hard to tell, but it did not press through too much on the other side, so we're safe, which is good. And I actually really like the result. You see, it's a little bit crinkly. Once I close my sketchbook, everything will flatten out and it will dry up flat, especially if I put something heavy on top. And it's not quite finished yet, but I was sort of thinking of maybe going in with colour pencil. I wasn't planning to do this, but I just think it would look really lovely. I can add some details to the picture because I find these textures of the paint just really wonderful, and I don't want to add more layers of paint, but I do think with my colors, with my color pencils, I can add just a little bit more warmth and a little bit of detail to the drawing. And I'm a little bit in two minds if I shall speed my video up a little bit, because color pencils are a bit slow. So I'm just going to film this and see if I find it too long at the end, or if I'm going to leave it in real time. I like sharing videos in real time, but I do not want to share a 3-hour video. So I'm going to have a look, see how long it takes me to finish this, and if I'm going to add any time lapse in. So I'm just starting with a little bit of orange, maybe adding in some strokes for hair. I'm just getting a bit of a sense for the feel of the drawing. Here I want the orange on the cheek to be a little bit more vibrant. I find the combination of color pencils and watercolor just really wonderful. It's something that I really enjoy. And it is a combination of materials that I use a lot when I'm doing client work, but not so much on YouTube for some reason. Maybe it is because by the time I've set up and I'm filming, I tend to stick with the material that I've chosen for the day. See if I can just add a little bit more depth to the skin. It's a bit more, the texture is a little bit different from paints. I don't know, I just really love it. Now I can add some highlights or some sunbeams, so to say. see if I can add just a little bit extra to the picture. Also, I don't mind it if you see some of the pencil strokes. There is a little bit of red pencil in there already for my sketch. And the funny thing is that I use color pencils, I teach color pencil drawing classes. And this is a different way of using the color pencil. Slightly less polished. It's mostly to add texture and lines to a drawing that otherwise is fairly flat. So it's a different way from how I use my color pencils when I set up for a class. Which is funny. People who join my classes are, Dana, what are you doing? This is not what you've taught me. And that's true. So I like this sort of grass around this woman. So, I use a mix of pencils. I use a mix of Polychromos and so these are Faber-Castell Polychromos. They're a very famous brand. Lots of color pencil artists use these. And they have very vibrant, full color. They're wonderful pencils to draw with. They blend really easily, I find. Yeah, I love using them, but I use some different brands as well. Even some children pencils that I've had for a long time. My main pencils are these Derwent Procolour and the Polychromos. And whenever you draw in color pencil, make sure you have a really nice sharp point on your pencil. That makes such a big difference. So, a little bit more shadow. I often find that the corners of someone's mouth are very dark. There's often a bit of a gathering of shadow there. Have you ever noticed that? See, details like this, just a little bit easier to do with pencil. So, very happy with the shadows that I have created. So I don't want to tinker too much. I feel like the texture of the shadows I'm really enjoying. So I'm slowly going a little bit darker, just some little shadows, still sticking with purple. Some shadows that could be a bit more intense, so here around the nose. Around the mouth. So, am I missing any other important shadows that I should add in? So, I think do I want to add any more? little bit more brown in the hair. See if I can add some floating hairs on the outside of this scope, just to make it a little bit more loose. So I think I'm going to call this finished. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm sort of considering making art prints of this painting. Let me know if you'd like to see it as an art print, if you'd like to purchase it as an art print. Let me zoom in a little bit. So, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment below, let me know what you think. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. I'm aiming to post weekly videos, but as I said, sorry I didn't manage to do one last week. I had a bit of a family emergency, but in theory every week there should be a new video. My videos should be calm, without lots of free music that a lot of videos have. I prefer just a voiceover or quiet. So let me know what you think, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!